28 through 36. Now, about 8 days after these sayings, he took with them Peter, John, and James, and went up on the mountain to pray. And as he was praying, the appearance of his countenance was altered, and his raiment became dazzling white. And behold, 2 men talked with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his departure, which he was to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now Peter and those who were with him were heavy with sleep. And when they awakened, they saw his glory, and the 2 men who stood with him. And as the men were parting from him, Peter said to Jesus, Master, it is well that we are here. Let us make 3 booths, one for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Not knowing what he said. As he said this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him. And when the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone, and they kept silence and told no one in those days anything of what they had seen. This is the word of God for the people of God.
Praise be to God.
You may be seated.
Hey, I like that. That's good. I just now saw that graphic. So, can you all hear me okay? Good. This is one of those scriptures that I think a lot of pastors struggle with, and I think probably a lot of people who read it struggle with. And every time I come to it, I am blown away by all that is there, by all that is referred to. And I think cloudy with a chance of is probably a pretty good description when we read what is going on here. When we look at the scripture, a lot of times the focus is often on the light. It's on the dazzling nature of that light. Indeed, if we look there in the scripture, we see very early on in verse 29, and as he was praying, the appearance of his face changed and his clothes became dazzling white. We have this image of this blinding light that is kind of over and through all things. But maybe we should just start off by setting the stage. Jesus goes and takes his 3 trusted disciples. He takes James and Peter and John, and they go to do what they have probably done morning after morning after morning. Now, in Luke's passage, he doesn't give the time of day, but basically just that it happens. But in some of the other Gospels, it references specifically that it happens early in the morning. And how early in the morning, we're not sure. We're not sure if the sun would have even been up yet, but it would have been a time where Jesus often went by himself to pray. But on this occasion, he decides to go and to pray with his disciples. And he takes them up the mountainside to pray. And as he takes them up the mountainside to pray, they are probably not expecting a whole lot. They are probably expecting their prayer with their rabbi to be just like it always is. But can you imagine what happens when it's something that is completely different than what they have set out to do takes place? Can you imagine just going in the morning into your room or to your kitchen table or to your car or your shower or wherever it is that you pray, and all of a sudden there is all of this, the blinding light. And while he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became dazzling white. And it is not just as if there is this dazzling nature to Jesus himself. It's the company that Jesus keeps. It's the people who are around him it says suddenly they saw two men, Moses and Elijah, talking to him. Now, I don't know about you. I don't have a pictorial directory. I'm not sure how they would know that it's Moses and Elijah. There would have been some signs that would have pointed that out to them, because who else would Jesus hang out with? But regardless of figuring that little thing out, what is important to keep in mind is that Moses and Elijah, those who represented the law and the prophets, were those who were with him, thereby lending credibility, lending voice, lending importance to this particular meeting. And it says that they appeared in glory and were speaking of his departure, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. Now, Peter and his companions were weighed down with sleep, but since they had stayed awake, they saw his glory and the two men who stood with him. So if you can imagine the scene, you go up, you begin praying with Jesus, and you do what the disciples often tend to do when they pray with Jesus early in the morning. And all of a sudden, at some point in time, when they are snoozing away and they wake up, light, dazzling light. The clothes, the raiment, one of the Gospels says that he became, the raiment was so white that the clothing, they could not even bleach that bright. And then to top it off, to have Moses and Elijah there with them. There is this holy moment, and they are trying to figure out what to do, and they're probably trying to figure out, am I awake? Am I sleeping through this? What is going on? Is this a dream? Is this reality? What is going on here? I don't understand. It's all a bit cloudy to me. It's all a bit cloudy to me. And I think when we look at our lives, we have those moments where on the one hand, everything is clear, but on the other, it's completely obfuscated. It's cloudy. You can't see past maybe your own face. Have any of you ever been in fog? Let's just start off with that. Okay. Have you ever tried to drive in really thick fog? And you realize when you try and drive in that thick fog, that, yeah, I'm looking at the back. You can't do it. You can't go anywhere. I remember one time I was hiking, and I was hiking up, it was Mount Lacan. It's kind of on the border of Tennessee and North Carolina. And I remember hiking early in the morning, and we had to pass through fog on the way up to the top of the mountain. Let me tell you, that is a scary experience. Let me tell you, that is a frightening experience, because not to know up from down, top from bottom, left or right, to only just keep going and hope that the trail is there, and in some places the trail does drop off. Can you imagine being on top of a mountaintop like Jesus is there with his disciples, and all of a sudden they're on the mountaintop, and then there is this prayerful experience, and all of this happens? And you're not really sure what to make of it. So what does Peter do? He puts his mouth out there. He said to Jesus, Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us make 3 dwellings, 3 booths, 3 tabernacles. One for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Should we stay here? We're not sure. This feels like holy ground, but it's also confusing. And while he was saying this, a cloud came and overshadowed them, and they were terrified as they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, This is my son, my chosen, my beloved. Some translations go for, listen to him. So see, right there in the midst of it all, sometimes we see the dazzling light. Sometimes we see the authority around us. Sometimes we don't know what to make because we can't see a single thing. But it says that voice from the cloud, the voice of God from the cloud says, This is my Son, my chosen. Listen to him. See, when we don't understand what is the way forward, when we don't understand where we are in all of this, when we find ourselves kind of engulfed in everything and unable to be sure about where to move and if we can move, the voice of God says, listen to my Son, Jesus. Listen to his words. Listen to his teachings. Listen to all that he has given us. We in this world seek a lot of different places for authority. We in this world seek a lot of different sources of authority. But at the end of the day, Jesus is there to speak to us if we are willing to listen to him. In the midst of what we know and in the midst of what we don't know. I don't know about you, but it was a little difficult to get out of bed this morning. In all of that cloudiness and all of that rain and all of that cold and all of that uncertainty. But you came here because you sought to be in fellowship with one another and in fellowship with God. You came here because you sought to listen to Jesus' voice and to hear his teachings and to hear his words and to know his compassion. And I think that it was uncertain for the disciples what they should say or do in this moment. Some of the translations say that they were instructed not to. Luke doesn't quite go that far. But they're not sure of what to make. And when you have ever found yourself in a holy moment that is overwhelming, and sometimes that's what we forget, is that the overwhelming moments are potentially holy too. Are you able to stop and to listen for that still small voice? Are you able to stop and hear the words of Jesus speaking to you? His voice is clear. It has always been clear. He has always spoken to us. And in this time of uncertainty for the church moving forward, that voice is still present. His compassion is still there. It has never left. It may seem like it's clouded with the chance of love. But God is still at work, and God is still speaking, and God is still moving up on the mountaintop, just like down in the valley. And we have that opportunity to gather together at this table, regardless of how we feel and where we're at. We gather at the table together, maybe in a bit of a cloud today, but we gather together to love one another as God in Christ has first loved us. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.